The Enlightenment, also known as the Age of Enlightenment or the Age of Reason, in French, le siècle des Lumières, lit the century of lights, and in German, Aufklärung. Enlightenment was an intellectual and philosophical movement that dominated the world of ideas in Europe during the 18th century, the century of philosophy. The Enlightenment included a range of ideas centered on reason as the primary source of authority and legitimacy, and came to advance ideals like liberty, progress, tolerance, fraternity, constitutional government and separation of church and state. In France, the central doctrines of the Enlightenment philosophers were individual liberty and religious tolerance, in opposition to an absolute monarchy and the fixed dogmas of the Roman Catholic Church. The Enlightenment was marked by an emphasis on the scientific method and reductionism, along with increased questioning of religious orthodoxy and attitude captured by the phrase "savoir, dare to know." French historians traditionally place the Enlightenment between 1715, the year that Louis XIV died, and 1789, the beginning of the French Revolution. Some recent historians begin the period in the 1620s, with the start of the scientific revolution. Les philosophes, French for the philosophers of the period, widely circulated their ideas through meetings at scientific academies, Masonic lodges, literary salons, coffee houses, and in printed books and pamphlets. The ideas of the Enlightenment undermined the authority of the monarchy and the church and paved the way for the political revolutions of the 18th and 19th centuries. The variety of 19th century movements, including liberalism and neoclassicism, trace their intellectual heritage back to the Enlightenment. Historians have long debated the extent to which the secret network of Freemasonry was a main factor in the Enlightenment. The leaders of the Enlightenment included Freemasons such as Diderot, Montesquieu, Voltaire, Lessing, Pope, Horace Walpole, Sir Robert Walpole, Mozart, Goethe, Frederick the Great, Benjamin Franklin, and George Washington. Norman Davies said the Freemasonry was a powerful force on behalf of liberalism in Europe from about 1700 to the 20th century. It expanded rapidly during the Age of Enlightenment, reaching practically every country in Europe. It was especially attractive to powerful aristocrats and politicians as well as intellectuals, artists and political activists. During the Age of Enlightenment, Freemasons comprised an international network of like-minded men, often meeting in secret in ritualistic programs at their lodges. They promoted the ideals of the Enlightenment and helped diffuse these values across Britain and France and other places. Freemasonry as a systematic creed with its own myths, values and set of rituals originated in Scotland around 1600 and spread first to England and then across the continent in the 18th century. They fostered new codes of conduct including a communal understanding of liberty and equality inherited from guild sociability, liberty, fraternity and equality. Scottish soldiers and Jacobite Scots brought to the continent ideals of fraternity which reflected not the local system of Scottish customs but the institutions and ideals originating in the English Revolution against royal absolutism. Freemasonry was particularly prevalent in France by 1789. There were perhaps as many as 100,000 French Masons, making Freemasonry the most popular of all Enlightenment associations. The Freemasons displayed a passion for secrecy and created new degrees and ceremonies. Similar societies, partially imitating Freemasonry, emerged in France, Germany, Sweden and Russia. One example was the Illuminati founded in Bavaria in 1776. Which was copied after the Freemasons, but was never part of the movement. The Illuminati was an overtly political group, which most Masonic lodges decidedly were not. Masonic lodges created a private model for public affairs. They reconstituted the polity and established a constitutional form of self-government, complete with constitutions and laws, elections and representatives. In other words, the micro-society set up within the lodges constituted a normative model for society as a whole. This was especially true on the continent, when the first lodges began to appear in the 1730s. Their embodiment of British values was often seen as threatening by state authorities. For example, the Prussian Lodge that met in the mid-1720s was composed of English Jacobite exiles. Furthermore, Freemasons all across Europe explicitly linked themselves to the Enlightenment as a whole. For example, in French lodges the line "as the means to be enlightened I searched for the enlightened" was a part of their initiation rites. British lodges assigned themselves the duty to initiate the unenlightened. This did not necessarily link lodges to the religious, but neither did this exclude them from the occasional heresy. In fact, many lodges praised the Grand Architect, the Masonic terminology for the deistic divine being who created a scientifically ordered universe.